everyone enjoys it. And I'll hand it over to Jim Lafner from just kind of down to share some info.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Eric. My name is Jim Lafner. I'm a project consultant for the Chester County Economic Development Council. And for those of you who may not have been at one of our events before, the Manufacturing Alliance is actually one of 4 industry partnerships that are a part of the Economic Development Council. I always like to point out that while the council is headquartered here in Chester County, in any given year, 52% of the companies they touch are outside of Chester County. Our mission in a nutshell is to help businesses grow. We are an investor-based organization. We have investors that are willing to pay it forward, and we've been involved in existence for over 60 years. So we try to help organizations in 4 different ways. We do have a board of directors, and we are not for profit. The 4 ways that we mostly try to help organizations is with financing through our sister organization called CECO. These are mostly SBA-backed loans, but we have a number of relationships with different banks in the area. And I know in terms of the energy world in Chester County, it looks like C-PACE financing is also going to be available hopefully by the end of the year. Another one of the services of the Economic Development Council is location services, trying to find you the best space. Oftentimes the space that you choose may or may not be able to take advantage of tax credits in terms of a KIZ zone, Keystone Innovation Zone. The Manufacturing Alliance and the other industry partnerships are part of our workforce development aspect. And we are here to help grow your workforce. We have training dollars available to offer you to help reimburse you for upskilling your employees and to make sure that they don't fall victim to any layoffs. And the last is innovation. We try to stay ahead of the curve with all the things that we do here. We do service businesses both domestically and internationally. We partner with numerous colleges, high schools, and elementary schools. In our manufacturing world, we participate and promote a contest called What's So Cool About Manufacturing. We realize that most manufacturers are looking for talent. We understand that manufacturing is an outstanding career to be involved in, and we are helping to educate both the parents and the school counselors on how that takes place. And you can DuckDuckGo, for those of you that don't like to have your search followed. DuckDuckGo is another local company that is a search engine, and you can use that tool to look up what's so cool about manufacturing and look at some of the videos that are there. And certainly we partner and are aided by the Chester County Workforce Development Board, and quite honestly, we have support from all the surrounding workforce development boards in that case. I know Eric thanked Thomas, our sponsor. At this point, I'd like to bring Lisa up to introduce our speakers. Thank you. Real quick, fair enough.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, but for those who don't, my name is Lisa Riegel, and I work for a company called Thomas for Industry. So we are well known for our supplier discovery platform called thomasnet.com, as well as our Thomas Marketing Services business. I also work with the association here to help with membership and events such as this. So I actually asked if I could introduce our 2 presenters today, because I have so much admiration for both of them as people, as well as their companies that they work with. They continue to grow their businesses, they invest in technology in their workforce, and they have a company culture that is excellent, as well as being really, really good marketers. So I thought I'd make sure you knew about that. So our first speaker is Michael Araten of the Rodon Group. So I've known the Rodon Group and about them for many, many years, mostly through 4 stories from Dave Burrell, but they had an amazing campaign I'll never forget. It's got to be 15 years ago when it started as We Beat China Prices. And that has since morphed into Made in America and Reshoring Initiative. So a wonderful company, the Rodon Group. I originally heard Michael through a podcast on with our CEO, Thomas, discussing how the Rodon Group continues to grow and build their business in their 3rd generation and recently hit 65 years in business. Pretty remarkable. Thank you. A fascinating story. Thank you, Michael, for speaking today.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Michael. Lucky enough to be president and CEO of the Rodon Group. As Lisa said, we've been at it for 65 years. I've been there since about 2006 and came in to run our toy business, our next toy business, and then folded in our manufacturing business. And as part of what we think about a lot is future-proofing our business. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, how I think about succession planning, is really always thinking about the balance of what you're dealing with today and then what you're dealing with for the future. So what do you want your business to look like in a few years? Just a little bit of background of us. We're one of the largest plastics injection molders in the United States, 9001 certified. Since I created this slide, we added 10 presses. We have 128 presses now in our facility in Pennsylvania, about an hour from here. And we focus on really being your one-stop solution for things that are made of plastics. We make about 10 billion plastic parts every year for a variety of industries and compete globally by investing in automation and upskilling our employees. So for us in today's specific topic, is succession planning. It's for me really about our continual improvement process more broadly, and always thinking about how are you making that part of your process. It's not like some companies do this. They meet for a strategic planning session or succession planning, and they put it off on the shelf somewhere, and they look at it sometime later, and we don't think that really works. So today, if you don't pay attention to anything else, this is the only slide you need to remember, and I can only remember like 5 things, so I only put 5 things on here. And so then build a succession planning, which is really the future of your business, into the DNA of your business. Always ask yourself the question routinely. We ask ourselves every month, once a month as part of our process, what do we want our business to look like in 3, 4, 5 years? For us, we think planning beyond 5 years is too murky. Too many things can happen. Maybe a global pandemic will happen in the middle. So I might change your plans slightly. So we look at it in those sort of, on average, 4-year cycles. And so by focusing on your talent now, who you have now, and then what kind of talent you'll need in the future, that your business continues to grow and thrive. So a lot of people say this, our people are our biggest asset. And not everybody lives that. And so to live that for us is thinking about what our talent needs are today, what they're going to be in the future, and then planning, mapping out what that will look like. So that's why I think a succession plan really is being the core of future-proofing your business. What that allows us to do is be competitive. So I want to talk a little bit about our competitive advantages, because when you do that, why should you do it? Why bother? We're all busy. Our most valuable asset is our time. So why bother doing any of this? For us, it allows us to have competitive advantages that we wouldn't have if we didn't think about the future in a routine way. So we're got a full staff of designers who are solving problems for many of the Fortune 1000 companies in the country. And we only are able to do that because we're trying to think about what their needs are in the future and then mapping our needs to their needs. Same thing for making our mold high volume manufacturing. It's part of really your strategic planning as a business. What business are you in? Who are your customers? What's important to them? And then you can create your competitive advantages by focusing on the future of your talent. And that allows us to have all these other advantages that our customers rely on us for: quality commitment, 99.8% customer acceptance, inventory management, environmental management, landfill free, and the rest of it. So, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of businesses that people can do business with. And I'm always asking our team, why are they picking us? Because they could pick a lot of people. There's probably 3,000 molders in the country. Why choose Rodon? We don't have a brand name like, say a Honeywell or a Merck or somebody else. So as middle market businesses, and most people are middle market businesses, how do you distinguish yourself? What makes you different? Why do they pick you? We think that thinking about the future allows that to happen. So I'm not going to focus on this too much. We've got a lot. We can send this around anybody who's interested. Our formula for success really is in solving our customers' problems and making sure that we're vertically integrated so that when they come to us, we can do their design, we can do manufacturing, we can do their fulfillment, we can do their shipping, all of the things that are important to them. And so they sleep at night, they don't have to worry about us. So we try to be the strongest link in their supply chain, which is, especially today, when the supply chain is in the news every day, it becomes more and more important. And taps into a larger issue about if we're really going to make more things in the United States, how are we going to strengthen the domestic supply chain to make that happen? And we think succession planning is a very, very important part of that. So what is succession planning? For us, it's the strategy, part of our strategic plan, to pass on the leadership and knowledge from one group to another and give people a pathway forward from there so that they can understand where they're going, what cross-training needs to happen. It's about making our business more efficient. And it's really about, the core of it, solving our customers' challenges. Because the more we solve our customers' challenges, the more we take off their plate, the more they want to use us, the stickier they become. And that also helps our own employee morale because they see a path forward. And so they're not thinking about, oh, I'm only doing this forever. And most people, and we built a culture where we think all our people want to grow in their roles. And so this gives them a chance to say, oh, here's where it goes. We've got 121 employees, and every one of them is important. And where can they go over the cycle of their career? And we tend not to have a whole lot of turnover. We always have to lose people to retirement, with the exception of third shift, so always a challenge. But outside of third shift, on the weekends, everybody stays. And for example, our CFO is actually retiring tomorrow morning. We've been planning for that over the last year and a half. The VP of our tour is retiring next May. We've been talking about that since last May. And preparing the teams so that they can come along and we won't skip a beat, because unless you want your business to die with you, that's okay if you do, we don't, then you need to start thinking about who are the people that are going to carry that forward, and how do you make that happen. So what does that mean from consideration set? What are the questions you're asking yourself if you're trying to do that? It's about talking to your employees, understanding where they are today, where they are tomorrow, and where you want them 4 years from now. And as you get people thinking about the future, then they start coming up with ideas that you would never come up with. And that allows them to feel like they're owning part of that process. It's pretty common sense stuff, right? If you have kids, if you make it your kid's idea, they agree. If you make it your idea, they don't agree, especially true for teenagers. So we try to make it as much as possible a collaborative process. I'm not saying we don't have the ultimate decision-making authority, of course we do, but having them be a part of the process and having them put their input in what they think the future of the business may look like allows us to have a richer vision together. What happens if you don't do it? Well, how many of us have said, oh, if this person goes, or she leaves, or she's sick, or she's on maternity leave, or he's over there, a certain part of the production stops. We don't ever want that to happen. So we're trying to constantly think about this as another form of insurance. Really. The more you're preparing your employees about the future, and the more they're thinking about how they can be part of that future, the more when stuff happens, whether good or bad, maybe something wins the lottery has to be for that reason. I hate to hit my bus example. I'd rather they win the lottery. So those things allow you to have that kind of flexibility that really helps you as you're thinking about the future of your business, whether it's losing key employees or just retirement, which is going to happen. The one thing I haven't been able to figure out is how to solve the aging problem. I'm kind of relying on Elon Musk for that. He figures that out. But and then as a practical matter, what is that? What business are you in? It's a little bit different for everybody in manufacturing, but who are the critical roles, what are the critical functions that make you get product out the door every day? And start there, right? Because it's, the 80-20 rule guy works here too. What are the 20% of the things that drive 80% of your business? That's where you should be focused. And that's a place to start, right? I'm not saying you don't go to all the employees eventually, but if you haven't started this process, first step is what are the most critical roles in the organization? And then go think about the future of those roles. And then build a profile, right? Like, we're all talking about LinkedIn profiles all these days, and buyer personas and all those kinds of things. Who's your ideal for this role? Might not be the person in the role today, but that's okay. What's the ideal? You get the person there who's in the role. You need, in some cases, to shift people around. Ultimately, you need to make some changes. Maybe you do. This process makes your business better. It forces you to look at your business from an investor standpoint as opposed to from an operator standpoint. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is an investor's focused on the bottom line of your business. And I think if you own your business, you're running your business, you see your team in your business, you should be looking at your business as an investor. And that means what's driving the bottom line results. And that filters through to being who the key people are to go do that, and then making sure that they're able to lead in the future. And then after you do all of that, obviously you're evaluating your candidates, you're looking at timing, you're looking at budget, you're looking at training and education required, and obviously obvious things that you need to do once you've got your right profile. Then you're assessing their needs and what training do they need. You touched on training here at the beginning of this meeting. Training dollars are available. So there's additional training that may be required, there's additional technology that may be required. All of that's going to take time and resources. And some of those resources are available for free or almost free at places like this council. So taking advantage of those resources is part of the process. And then once you've done all of that, you have a more detailed plan of moving from whatever your point is you're in now, to point B, going through the goals and objectives, going through what's going to be the metrics for holding everybody accountable. Because at the end of it, you're doing this not just because you're a good person. I'm sure you're doing this because you're a good person, but because you want your business to grow and thrive faster than it would otherwise do so. So that's part of the development plan. And then you've got your implementation plan, which is more detailed metrics around every job title, every job description, flow chart, and etc. So once you've done all of those things, I think you sleep at night better. And I think that you tend to enjoy your day-to-day management better because you've got a path forward. Having a plan is, to me, just the best way to relax. Is that you've got a plan, you've got a path forward, and you've got an ability to carry on talent from generation to generation, which is, I think, ideally what we can all do together. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was so interesting. We had another half hour. So our next speaker that we're going to hear from is my dear friend, Brian Hess. We go way back. I can't tell you how many years. It's a lot. Brian's company is the Astro Machine Works. Astro Machine Works. Astro is an amazing company. They're constantly investing in machinery, advanced machinery, as well as expanding their buildings. And most importantly, they're investing in the people. So one thing I can tell you, I've been through quite a few plane tours over there, and I can tell you that as soon as you walk in the door, you notice that the people are happy. And that, I think, is the most important thing about those about a company is having your workforce be happy. So Astro has taken a little bit of a different path in their succession planning. About 4 years ago, it was announced that their current president would be retiring someday. So they chose to create an ESOP, which is something very interesting. So I'm going to have Brian share that, how successful it's been. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody. As Lisa mentioned, in 2016, the current president of Astro made the announcement of the intentions to start a succession planning. He was looking to retire somewhere in the next 7 to 10 years, and he wanted to make sure that company continued to go right along even without him being there. He is the fourth, the last remaining of 4 original owners that have all since retired. So we also have a private equity group as part of ownership. And within the private equity group, there was also a few of those that were at retirement age and really weren't looking to continue to invest in a machine shop, buying hundreds and sometimes millions of dollars in equipment. So they looked and said, okay, what's the next step? And that's when it was ultimately decided to go with ESOP. And not just a partial ESOP, 100%. So we went from 4 original owners to now we have 120 owners of Astro. The entire business and all real estate, everything was put in a trust for all the employees. And we communicate and we drive this concept. It's almost a religion that we do. And the benefit from it is, as you can see, when this started in 2018, our share price was $1.12. Fast forward 2 years later, it's $113.56. So you see what the increase, what that did from 2018 to 2019 and ultimately to 2020. And that just grows excitement within the company itself. And so in fact, this year, leading up to the stock price announcement, they held a contest. Anybody of all the employees could submit what they thought that the share price was going to be. And they gave out, I think they split up $500 that they gave out. And the winner was actually our admin girl that sits at the front desk. She was within $2 of the announced share price. So it's just keeping the employees engaged. Now, along with that, you look at a comparison to what Astro's share price did versus in the same time period, the S&P 500. The S&P 500 grew 50% in that 3-year period, where Astro grew over 10,000% in their share price. So it's a pretty solid investment. Of course, you always have to have that disclaimer. Yeah, when things look great, $113.56 in 2020, but past performance is no guarantee for future results. So everybody is aware of that. Now, I started with where we are now. And what's important to know is how did we get there? When the original president retired in 2006, at that time, the private equity group bought into Astro. They came in with the same business principles as the 4 original owners had, in that the investment is in the people. From day one, when Astro went into business, they wanted to treat their employees the way they expected to be treated. So when the private equity group bought in, it was with the same business principles. We knew that they weren't coming in to buy us, tear us apart, and sell us off piece by piece. They wanted to see the company grow as well. So along with the new regime of ownership, we started an OBM program, which is open book management. That officially kicked off in November of 2007. As you can see on the slide, there's 4 basic components of the OBM program: share financial information, training financial literacy, empower and trust, and share the rewards for shared success. Now, anybody that's been in a small business, especially in manufacturing, money, profit, everything was always held close to the vest. You didn't know how much you were making. At Astro, it's different. We have a whole wall of metrics showing where all the money that's coming in from sales and any other investments, and then what bills are being paid, and the bottom line at the end of the day, this is what's left in the pot for everybody. It's paid out twice a year. as long as you continue to make money. So if we're making money in June, we're getting a portion of the profits paid out in a bonus. If we continue to make money into December, we get the rest of that benefit before Christmas. If that fails between June and December, there's no money in the pot. Now, along with everything that went along with the OBM and the metric boards and everything that goes with that, it was all with being able to measure all of these different things, because if you can't measure it, you can't fix it, or you can't improve it. So this one's a little harder to see, but the OBM payout since 2007, Astro has paid out to the employees over $3.8 million in a bonus program. As you can see, every year wasn't a successful year. But go to 2020, and the year that we had last year, we actually paid out a record amount in both June and December. How did we get there? Had to do with our company culture. Started working on our company culture in 2015. We rewrote our vision, values, and mission statement, and we engaged all the employees to create a new VVM document. And the document that was written was called By the People, For the People. We also began to hire employees as a cultural fit, in addition to their technical skill sets. We formed collaboration teams for employee recruitment, retention, and development. And we emphasized careers, not jobs. Started a one-on-one coaching to aid employee success and development. One of the things that is unique about Astro is we've been in business since 1984 and have never had a layoff. Something that we're very proud of. Not really right. I've been there 22 years, and just to give you a little bit of an idea of the success of the company, I think in the 22 years that I've been here, I've seen the hourly work week go to 40 hours, maybe 3 weeks. And it's just never, it's not in our DNA to work a 40-hour work week. We always have the business to back it. Through all this, has the ESOP been successful? For us, it was a natural and a logical step in our evolution. We had no issue with transparency due to the 11 years of the OBM. Where many new ESOPs, they find that transparency mindset hard to adapt or to adopt. And because of this, the advantages, it strengthened our culture and engagement even more. It gives us recruiting and employer retention advantages. A very favorable tax status, we pay them taxes. And first and foremost, our people are our number one asset. We continue to grow, invest in them to grow our business. Gives the employee owners the incentive to grow the business even more, because they see what's could go into their pocket at the end of the day. It's made our team members cognizant of top line sales, EBITDA, and intelligent spending. We go through training multiple times a year so that we're up to, everybody understands everything behind the business part of this. It's set us up for the foreseeable future to maintain a viable and growing business. So the decision has proven out to be there's been no downside to it, there's no regrets, no second thoughts, and they would do it again in a heartbeat. With that, I want to leave you with our recruiting video that we just completed not too long ago. And have to give Lisa kudos for getting it all out on all of our social media platforms. There's my Thomas Smith plug.
Appreciate it, Brian.
Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Michael, Brian, thank you both. I think I can speak for your very interesting takes on your guys' approach to development and planning for the future. Similar, as far as employee count goes through businesses, but the overall structure is very much different. As we dive into this Q&A, you gave us just enough where I'm really intrigued and have a lot of questions myself. I'm sure the group does as well. So for those of you online virtually, please share Jim's I believe we can submit our questions in the chat, and we'll try and get those asked to the group. In the meantime, while you're formulating those, I believe there is a survey. We'll just pause real quick and make sure we get the survey out to everyone. We have it up here. Jim will hit it out. If you can please take a few minutes in person here to fill it out, and virtually, please submit it once it's emailed to you. One other housekeeping note, our next event is December the 7th. You'll actually be here at the Development Council. It'll be following one of our board meetings. It'll be a networking event. So that will be December 7th. We'll have more information that will be distributed in the coming months, but hopefully we'll be able to see more of you at that event. As far as I think the best approach to handle the questions, Jim, Sherry, once they're asked, would you like Michael and Brian to be up here in front of the camera for the answers?
Yes.
I'll just wait a second until the surveys are completed. For those of you in person, when you have a question, please just raise your hand and be clear to who you're directing the question, if it's one of the other Michael or Brian. Look, O'Brien, if you'd like to come up. When questions are asked, whether it's direct, she just kind of slide over here. So, first question that came from the chat was for you, Brian. Back when the SOP was announced, talk a little bit about how the costs were absorbed, how the initial share price was created, and what the total cost impact was for the employees, please.
Everything was, the entire business wise was put into a trust. That's, that we have a group, an outside group that oversees that group. And then every year an evaluation is done with the everything that was put into trust was actually done as a loan that we pay back, the employees pay back so much a month until that's paid off. It's a 10-year program. We're 3 years into this, and we're probably about 7 years into as far as what we paid back to the total debt. And then once that debt's paid off, then everything within Astro is owned by all the employees. At what cost did it come to the employees? Absolutely nothing. There was nothing was taken away. We still have the OEM, we still have the OEM bonus payout as long as again, as long as you continue to make money. We have a 401k. So no benefits were taken away from any employees, and there was absolutely no cost to any employee to be part of this. Just you're hired at Astro, you are part of the ESOP program, and it's a 7-year vested interest. So after 7 years, you're fully vested.
You spoke to the retention, so I'm assuming once the initial announcement came out, must have been well received.
Very much so. And that's another thing that's unique about Astro is that we have a relatively low turnover rate with employees. Being in business since 1984, 37 years, we still have the very first employee hired by the four original owners of Astro is still there. He's retiring in another month, but he's still there. So that that part of it never seemed to be a problem. This just strengthened that.
Next question is for Michael. In looking for the next best person, how do you solve the internal existing person if they don't meet that profile that you developed?
Yeah, good question. I think we'd go about it a couple of ways. Our last option is to partner with the person who's there, because usually there's another role we can find for that person. But I think it's really pretty straightforward. We're just talking to the people and saying, here's what we need, here's where we think you can fit. And as we look out to the future, we see you more in this role than that role. And if that role is not satisfactory to that person, then they tend to just self-select out. So we haven't had a whole lot of conflict around that, but it's really just open communication. It's another version, I guess, of OBM, really. It's just being open and honest with people about where you're going, what you need, and then, try to map that out. We've been at this a while, so in the beginning, that'll probably happen more than it happens over time. But over time, the people that you have in the spots are people that you've thought about and you're coming along. So your batting average tends to go up over time.
That actually leads me to a follow-up question. Were you there from the beginning when this plan started getting put in place? And, if you were, looking at those critical roles first and then expanding out, talk to the time frame,
Sure.
a company of your size.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it was being done informally well before I got there. People were just instinctively, our generation two built the business to a sort of saying, constantly saying, oh, here are these new opportunities and how are we going to fill them? And it sort of started on that path. I came from a public company before I joined Rodon, and so I had seen processes at a different level of scale. And so when I joined, part of what I started doing with our group is in our family, really saying, let's professionalize this in a more systematic way. We're super systemized about how we make stuff, right? Next to 2001, everything's got a process. Well, we don't have a process for this. Why don't we? And they sort of laughed after we were like, oh yeah, well, first they said they had a process, but then we had that discussion. Then once we realized it was an informal process, there's always a process. It's just how formal or informal. So I think over the last 15 years that I've been there, that's part of being what we've become part of the next generation of what we're doing is putting a process to that's what makes us competitive and more efficient.
Yeah, I think your suggestion was really good. You don't have this set up, start with the critical roles, because it can seem overwhelming. If you're
Sure.
trying to create a process for every single employee that you have.
I agree. I'll take a less controversial thing or less emotional thing, which was we started with marketing in a different way with actually Thomas, and there's all this stuff you can do digitally. What is it? And we finally said, all right, what's the simplest thing we can start with? It was pay-per-click ads on Google. And we started with literally a $50 per month budget on Google. And so you're right, it's the first step, right? Just start, learn, because there one person, like who's my foreman that I just got to make sure, who's another easy one is who's retiring next 5 years, and then which of those people are critical and start there. So, I agree. It's together.
Especially in the manufacturing, so there's so much of the workforce retired.
Yes.
5 years later, too long.
Or 3, right? Yeah, you look at who's on the line for retirement over the next 2 years. And I think that's a great place to start.
Mark?
I want to commend both of you on how well you've been able to deal with two critical issues in manufacturing. This is going back 5 years. Of one of the first seminars I attended was retaining employees and succession planning. And you have two different approaches, and it seems like very successful in terms of what you've been able to do. And it all comes down to both of you empowering your employees seems like the common denominator. The question I have for Michael is, when you look at your strategic plan and you're looking out 5 years, and then you have your 80-20 rule in terms of I'm focusing 80% of my energy on the 80% of the workforce or whatever. Does that strategic plan sort of take you away from that? Is there a tug and pull on that? because maybe your strategic plan is going away from your core business, but you're still trying to maintain that. How do you sort of deal with
Yeah,
those
that's
two?
one of my favorite words. My wife will hear me say it all the time, is balance. And it's finding that balance. So you're planning for the long term, you're dealing with the short term. There is no long term without a short term. So what's happening on a quarterly and annual basis? Is it mapping out what you think is going to be happening in the future? And you have to be humble enough to know that you're going to be wrong. And how long are you going to be? Are you willing to change the facts? And that's part of it. So, you know, we may think, and we have thought, you know, we thought about different segments. We thought we were going to do a ton of government business. That was one of our plans a while ago. And a lot of reasons to do it, made in America and all that stuff. And we just couldn't get it going in the way we wanted. So we left that part of our long-term plan and focused more on construction, which is one of our other areas. We sort of identified 3 areas. And we were having a lot of success there. So we changed the focus, therefore changed what we were doing with our employees to get more skilled in that particular segment. So it's always that balance. And so we're looking at, because we're sort of doing this rolling cycles, we're looking 4 years out, we're seeing how we're doing, we're measuring that against what we think we're going to be, and then making adjustments along the way. One of my favorite analogies to long-term planning is sending a rocket to the moon. The rocket to the moon was only actually on the course 4% of the time. A lot of course corrections along the way. It got there. If you look from the start to the end, it looked perfect. But if you talk to the engineers there, it was off course most of the time. Having to get it in. So, and having watched William Shatner yesterday, they got a lot better, right? The rocket landed by itself. So there's a lot of course correcting that needs to happen, and that's just part of the balance. And I think tying into your earlier comment, the combination of the commonality between both of us really is about the feeling of ownership. It could be actual ownership, or it could be being part of the process and being part of the process. So both of those things can work. Obviously, most companies are not ESOPs, so it's creating that environment that you feel like you're part of the future. And there are certainly usually, I'm not saying there's not money involved, there's going to be probably bonus structures and all of the rest of the things as well. But it's that, I think it's the communication achieves a lot of the goals that an ESOP also achieves. I think that it's a fascinating way to look at it. So anyway, how does it want to add?
No, I think we did it all.
A follow-up question I would have on that is, you both spoke a lot about culture. And the importance of saying, like what you said, having ownership, whether it's formal or, perceived as pride in the company. Speak to that as far as, please, new employees coming in, your existing employees kind of police themselves as far as enforcing that culture. Just be interested in you guys.
I think that I don't know how we call it policing, but for us, it's almost a mentoring program. We don't just hire somebody and they come in and they're just not thrown to the wolves. And because of that, that mentoring program, they're given an opportunity to work side by side with our veteran people and learn from them on how our culture is built. And it's just a natural evolution with all of our new employees that way. Just because they're just not thrown in and say, there's your machine, go to it.
I agree with that. I also think there's a simple thing that happens in a place. We're in a really nice room here today. The building's great, and I think the sense of place. Like I noticed your group video how clean the shop looked, and we're clean freaks in our place too. And I think that's the sense of pride starts to walk into the place. Well, no, people care about this place. It's freshly painted. The machines are up to date. The people are, so it starts with all the way in. The parking lot looks right, like everything, so it looks organized and clean, and so it creates right away an impression that these people must care about themselves here because they've created an environment where you can actually just focus on what you're doing and not tripping over, lubricants and wires. And so it's just as simple as that. I think it helps set the tone.
I mean, it goes right down to, I always told the story when I first started at Astro. My very first day, back then, he's one of our sales, he's our government sales manager now. He actually followed me back home, dropped my vehicle off, and then brought me back in my new car. And he told me, he said, you will never, ever hear one complaint. Let me back up. Along with the car, we got a car wash cart. He said, you will never, ever hear a complaint about how high our car wash bill is every month. So it goes all the way to every one of our vehicles that's on the road. That's probably our biggest billboard is all of our trucks that are on the road. We get more compliments from people saying, I saw your truck. You know, so the culture goes down that far.
Okay. This question is for Brian. With having the OBM system, do you or how do you keep employee salaries private from others?
That is in the OBM program, that is the one thing that is not disclosed, our employee salaries. Now, you'll see a top line on the metrics saying what the combined payout is for, you know, everybody's weekly wages, but it's not broken down individually. That's kept private.
This question came in from the chat, so just make sure I understand it correctly. Please discuss how you determine the resource pressure point critical versus positions that are part of the strategic plan.
Okay, so, yeah, I think I understand. How do you decide what's most important? My quick answer to that is what drives the profitable revenue from the business? I always start with what are we selling that makes us the most money? Then from there, what is that? Who's involved in that process? Is it a particular product line? Is it a particular customer? Is it a particular segment? What is it? And so, you know, because nothing else happens if we're not, you know, sales doesn't happen, right? So I always start with sales first, and then use that revenue generation to inform what is it that I have to focus on to get those sales to happen. So in your case, it might be that my distribution center, my warehousing is screwed up. You know, and if I had racking and barcoding and all that, I could get out 20% more stuff. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's that my ERP system, all the modules are turned on and I can't tell where my inventory levels are properly. Maybe it's that my tool makers, you know, aren't up on the latest technology. So I'm getting requests for projects that I can't do. So it's understanding where your sales are coming from, to me, is the most important thing. And then the rest flows from that, because then once you understand that, you understand which people are driving that, then those are, in my mind, the most important people. I'm not talking about salespeople in particular, I'm talking about people actually making the stuff happen that allows you to get product out there.
So through this whole pandemic, and this is probably to both of you, what have you learned about your company that you really didn't know before the pandemic and sort of brought it to light in terms of what, I'm not saying the silver lining in it, but what came out of that that sort of changed the way you thought about things going forward and maybe some of your succession planning as well as just your business?
I think for me, the biggest lesson was we sent everybody home who could be home, who didn't have to be on, you know, working machine. We deemed it essential business by the governor's, you know, order of where either the plastics was, but we sent everybody home we could, but we sent 40% of the workforce home. And within 10 days, it was as though, you know, they were more productive than they were arguably when they were in the office. Everybody stepped up, everybody communicated more, everybody was able to, you know, our IT group was like you guys, was able to set everybody up and work, we were able to give customers. So I think for me, that broadened out where we can get talent from, because the challenge is that, you know, we all have to be right here in the factory. And so it's that balance of the ability to see talent in other parts of the country have some people potentially remote all the time. And it allowed us to give more flexibility to our workforce. So we're still only going for those office people in the office 3 days a week. We think that may be the way it goes forever. They're happier, less commuting, they're productive, they're still in enough that we have interactions on a daily basis when necessary. So I think we found that, if you're working in balance of innovation and flexibility. So for me, those have been the biggest lessons. I think the other big lesson is diversity of end markets is important. Because, you know, we had been one of our strategic objectives and we weren't sure if we were in the right markets. And, you know, we let the pandemic hit, 40% of our customers were shut down. Within 2 months, we were doing more business we were doing pre-pandemic because of some of our other segments that went up. But, you know, there's a diversity more. So I think diversity of end markets and flexibility of workforce are my two big lessons.
We're a little bit different in that we didn't have to have anybody go remote. We were also deemed an essential business because of all the diverse types of business that we do, both on the commercial side and on the government side. And there was really never any discussion from day one about, is there anybody that can work remote? I think everybody that is there from management on down is so hands-on with the company that it would be very difficult to do. Probably the biggest impact that it had is how we do sales, where and I'm probably the biggest one that affected is that my time on the road has almost gone away, and it's for me personally, it's been a challenge. But you know, for me being behind the desk 90% of the time versus 30% of the time, it's changed the way that we do business. It really hasn't slowed us down. So there is definitely, we see the pluses and minuses from it. But we will, there's the way that we do business, the remote part of it just, it doesn't work for us.
Very good. This question was directed to Michael, but I think you could both probably speak to this. The point of empowering employees, how do you evaluate certain employees' dedication to the company versus it's just a job to them when you're searching for those future leaders and kind of building that bench?
With us, it started with the OBM program. We found out very early on with some of the employees that didn't grasp the whole concept, where it's important to know where your money's going. And we had a couple of employees that just said, you know what, yeah, it's great, we pay out a bonus twice a year. I'm just going to ride the coattails and reap the benefits. It wasn't management that drove them out. It was the people on the work floor that was working side by side with them. So that's how it works for us.
Yeah, I would say for us, there's a certain level that the culture as it gets developed, people like to be with people that sort of think like them generally, and so that what happens. I think it reminds me of an old Supreme Court case about pornography, which is you know when you see it, and if you communicate a lot as owners and managers in middle market business, they can have that advantage where you don't have thousands of people spread across the world, so you get to know the people that you're working with. And so it is hard to fake attitude, positive attitude, and looking for more responsibility and asking about the future. It's just hard to fake that. So one of the advantages of having a middle market business is that you get to know your people, and so you know over time which people are motivated and which people are just sort of, it's a job to them and they're running out the door and they don't want to, they're just not focused on growth in the way we're focused on.
So follow-up question on that, you just spoke about, pandemic and now, embracing innovation and technology, and as our workplaces are sick of us being spread out all over the country. Is that harder to manage in your opinion, or does that still shine through?
I think
Even if
it's,
you're not side by side.
I think it's, there's trade-offs, I think we talked about that, there's trade-offs to everything. And I think that the advantage of the technology is that it allows you to communicate all the time. The disadvantage is that you have to be more proactive because you're not walking around the hallways. And so you have to plan those communications. So if you set up a secretary or process to communicate with your people and push it through the organization, then you can approximate that. But I do think that we're still, people, and until we evolve into floating heads, that there is some human interaction is still going to be necessary. What level that is going to depend on the organization and the kind of work you're in and what you're doing. And because not every we have one location or two locations a mile of each other. If you're lucky enough to have 7 locations around the country or 25, then you just have to deal with that. I mean, and obviously many successful companies do that. So I don't think you have to all be in one place for it to work, is my point. But there's advantages to being in one place.
I have 2 questions, and I'll ask them at the same time, so if you want to ignore one, you can. And when I ask the question, you'll realize that. So my first question is your firm hiring, or has it been recently? And how's that going? Because there seems to be less people available to work. The second question is, there are certain, and I don't understand it exactly, but it seems to be that there are certain vaccine mandates either pending or soon to be pending for firms. I know one of these is 122, I think the other one's just under 100 employees, but how is your company addressing those mandates? So they're my 2 questions. You can do with them as you please.
So on the OSHA thing, which is going to be for all people who have more than 100 employees, we gave our employees a heads up that we're going to enforce it. That we're saying, we incentivize everybody to get vaccinated with $100 gift card things. We brought in on-site shots. We did as much as we could, and we got 104 out of our 122 people vaccinated so far. So we're down to the holdouts, right? That's where we're down to pretty much. So we're trying to make it on that. I believe in the in the full I wish we were all vaccinated. I think it's hard as a middle market business sometimes because everybody's so critical to mandate it and risk them losing, which is a little easier for someone like United Airlines that lost 600 people, but they lost 600 people out of 60,000, and they'll make up that 1% relatively quickly. If we lose those 17 people, we potentially are out of business. So although I'd love to take that stance, I'm actually happy OSHA's going to make them get tested every week. We make them wear masks because we're allowed to do that, so if you're not vaccinated. So at least we're trying to make it uncomfortable for people who aren't vaccinated and give rewards to people who are. That's sort of our view of that. We're also going to be charging them more for health insurance if they're not vaccinated, other deductibles. So we're nudging people in the direction of being vaccinated. On the hiring, yes, we're hiring. We've been hiring through the pandemic. We hired through the pandemic. It is definitely a little bit harder to find people than it was, 2 years ago. I think a lot of that is people have different, it's compounded. Manufacturing was tough anyway, and it's compounded by people being scared of coming to work or all the other childcare issues and everything else that's going on. So, but yes, we've hired. We continue to hire, and that's what we are. So we're looking forward to the OSHA mandate. We think that people having to pay for their own tests every week is going to cause them to take the shot. That's what we think.
As far as Astro goes, we haven't been quite as creative as Michael's company has been with some great ideas that I'm going to take. But we have a safety manager that his full time, that's all he does is stay on top of all this. We currently we do have 120 employees, but we have not instituted a mandate that anybody that's not vaccinated must be vaccinated. Although a company newsletter just went out a week ago from the president of the company saying that it's being watched closely and it could change their report. So, understanding everybody's personal beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever it might be. far as the hiring, yes, we're always hiring. I should say always, almost always hiring. It is challenging. We have our own internal apprenticeship program that we started a few years ago for our machinists. And we'll pull a person, if they've got the right attitude and what we feel is the right work ethic, with no experience, we'll pull them off the street and actually train them. We just had another one that started on Monday.
And how long is your apprenticeship?
Well, a lot of it's dependent on the person itself. It's not a formal program in that you're going to, say, a night school for 2 nights a week for 4 years like I did when I started my apprenticeship a long time ago. And then when you finished your 4 years of theory and you had your 2,000 hours, whatever that number was, you got your certificate. All of our theory training was all done online. So the pace of that is up to each individual person. And we tried to keep that moving along with, they rotate everywhere through the shop, with the exception of maybe a machinist may not spend a lot of time in the weld shop learning how to weld. But they get to see all aspects of the company, which is really beneficial because we're a custom machine builder since day one. So if a machinist doesn't understand why does it have to be made such a close tolerance, when he hits the assembly floor and sees the parts that he used to make don't fit, light bulb goes off. So yeah, the hiring process is continuous. The biggest challenge, and probably no different for you, is night shift. If we could hire 8 or 10 more people just for night shift, we would do it in our.
Follow-up question for you, Brian. In regards to retention, you spoke of your apprenticeship program. Do you see better success rates for those that come through the apprentice program versus those that come with skill and background they've already received outside of the organization? Can you correlate that at all?
I think it's a trade-off. We're always looking. It's harder to find the experienced guy that's looking for a job because they're just not moving. Years ago, it used to be you were a machinist or a tool and die maker. There was nothing to move from shop to shop to shop. You just don't see that anymore. The guys that are going through the apprenticeship, I think what advantage they may have in the long run is they're getting to see and getting hands-on with every aspect within the shop itself. Or if you hire somebody that's got experience, say he's an experienced milling machine operator, that's where he's at. Where if our apprentices, they get a well-rounded education through their apprenticeship that when they're done, where they thought they were going to be, or when they first started the apprenticeship, may not be where they end up, or they can be moved around as needed.
That probably also helps with building their development plan because they saw firsthand all aspects of the business. So they would have some more input into the areas that they want to eventually get to.
I've got a question, circling back to communication. I'm challenged by figuring out how to best communicate in a hybrid setting. Is that something that you have developed some technical approach to figuring out how to create? Yeah, you can go out there, but how do we create that togetherness part?
Yeah,
Speak to that.
we do 2 things. We do one-to-one, so I do one-to-one with my direct reports, either online or in person, mostly online once a week. Then I have them do their one-to-ones with their direct reports once a week. We have a senior team meeting every other week that could be virtual or in person. And then we'll have department once a week meet virtually or in person. So there's set touch points across the organization so that the information flow is happening. And then in the background, something on top of that happens that's significant, then we'll use our intranet to send out a message internally as a written event. But you know, which has happened more than I expected because of all the health changes. So we need a lot of updates on the health front. That's how we do it. So we set up a communication process to set up.
And, do you have any, like, is there a way how to communicate that through, for instance, like a common screensaver that pops up for everyone? Is something like that that you might have?
I mean, there are different tools.
Yeah.
You know, we use either Zoom or GoToMeeting for those things. That's what we're doing. You know, and then we also we're using HubSpot as our communication both externally and internally.
Gotcha.
So if we have to push a message,
Yep.
either by text message or by email, we can do it that way.
How do you have fun? How do you have fun together? No, I mean, I'm really, I used to work for an organization where we had, my goodness, I need more weight, but it's like, there was like some food event or something like happening all the time, and then you're like, you know, it's like gone, right? How do you have fun?
That's a good one. I mean, we're having fun every day because we're creating great stuff. But no, I mean, I know you're talking about those events. We, you know, I think that the fun part, that kind of fun, interactive fun, has been put on hold for us since the pandemic has begun. We've done some stuff on Zoom where we talk to each other, and we haven't done any of the. I've done some virtual charity events where they mail the food home and they run on together. We've made drinks together. We haven't done that. We didn't. I think it's just not the same, and we feel like we'll just wait until we can actually get together and do it. There you go. For those of you who send you a virtual beer. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Again, Mike and Brian, my warmest appreciation, thank you very much. You both did an excellent job. Those of you that are joining us virtually, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, you're not going to be enjoying the rest of the festivities, but thank you for tuning in. Hopefully next time we will be able to see you in person. Again, another thank you to Lisa and Thomas Registry in particular for being a premier sponsor for this event. Again, we wouldn't have been able to do it without you, so thank you very much. I'm glad.
So there is food outside as well that just showed up. Elaine, if you caught her coming to me, was concerned because one of it's hot and it's Elaine. So if you're in the other room, I need to know. So come help yourself.
So,
Yeah, sure.